Hello, welcome to the Brain Scrub, a somewhat improvised approach to mental health. My name is Glenn Sollers. Thanks for tuning in to this episode today. Continuation of the last episode. I thought it was going to be 4 parts, but I think it's just going to be 2 now that I reviewed the book. I completed The Power of Letting Go by John Purkiss. Amazing book, really reinforced a lot of what I've learned over time, but also gave me some new activities to do and some ones that are just done in a different way. And in the last episode, we talked about those things that we see in ourselves that we may not like, our negative patterns of behavior. And another important thing to do is to think about, what don't I like in other people? What do I find negative in other people? Important exercise to do, and I'll let you know why. Because I am not going to change other people. I can only change how I respond to other people. And if I can understand what do I find negative in others, I can look within and start to analyze it. One of the workshops I teach is called Authentic Communication. I did the workshop yesterday, and the workshop is about how do I show up with people? What do I do when I'm too authentic? Okay, and that is maybe direct and to the point. What do I do with others that is inauthentic? And that might be I'm saying yes when I really mean no, or I'm not asserting my interest. What drives that in us, this what we want to do but we don't do, like our authentic selves, and what can I do differently as a result? And how do I analyze the situation? Because how I feel about myself really impacts how I feel about others. And when I see negative behaviors in others, there is a strong chance that you have done the same thing or you do the exact same thing, but it's easier to point at somebody else and say, you know what, they're doing it, and be offended by it because it makes us feel great. And then I don't have to look at myself. So much easier. And yesterday at the workshop, this lady walked up to me, and this is what I love about my work, is she said, Glenn, thank you. It is so easy for me to look at others and blame others, but today I've realized that it's up to me on how I respond and how I live my life. And I complain about others, for sure. I don't always assert myself. And if I keep on focusing on the other and say that you are the problem, it gets me absolutely nowhere other than complaining, draining my energy, being upset about it, letting other people know what this person is doing to me, falls into this victim mentality. And by actually looking at ourselves and recognizing that we do the same thing at times, and it's up to me to resolve the issue versus blaming other people. Now, of course, if there is somebody else that has some toxic behaviors, I need to look at them and talk to them and have some conversations about how they make me feel and so on and so forth. But ultimately, the gift yesterday was this person saying, you know, Glenn, you've given me the gift of self-awareness and the importance of looking within to live a more authentic life. And I'm using my own words here. But that was so powerful for me because there are some people out there that get it, that they really understand that it's up to me to live a happy, fulfilling, and rewarding life. And if I focus on what's not working in myself and others, that can lead to a problem. But it is important to look at what's not working within ourselves when we relate to other people, because then we can do something about it. And change our approach, change our expectations, change how we see ourselves, change how we see other people, because generally people are trying to do the best they can. Now, just want to mention that because in the last episode, we talked about what do we see negative within ourselves, and also we need to look at what do we see negative in other people. And if we create a list of what we see negative in other people and we go through the list, we will probably check off a lot of things in terms of, yep, I know this because I do it sometimes. Do I give people the silent treatment sometimes? Yes, I do. Do I sometimes not know what to say? Yep. Can I be boring at times? Yes. Can I lack passion at times? Yes, I can. Can I speak badly about people? Yes, I can. Do I get frustrated at other drivers? Yes, I do. Do I make mistakes? Yes, I do. All these things. I know it. And then it's so easy for me to turn around and tell the other person, wow, you're the problem, not me. So once we do this list, we can then go through and then start processing it. And what is mentioned in this book, The Art of Letting Go, is that in order to let go of things, we need to relive to relieve. I've done this in the past, and this was different now. What I did in the past was I created a story about how did I come to believe this? When did it start? So it's important to understand when it started. When did you start feeling this way? When did you experience this the first time? How old were you? And putting yourself back in that situation and considering, what was I going through at that time? What beliefs did I form about myself? And this was such a powerful activity where you sit in front of a mirror and look at yourself and start telling your story about whatever happened. And for me, it was about my son and me not seeing my son for 7 years. And when did I start feeling like I didn't belong? When I did this, I started crying. My face shriveled up. I was rocking back and forth. I kept on talking. I started realizing different things, and I was telling the story in terms of how I experienced it, what I saw, what the facts were, where might it have started, and I became fully present and aware that I feel at times that I don't belong and I'm not acceptable. And I've always been trying to prove myself that I am acceptable, that I do belong, by going over the top and trying to be that person that ensures everybody feels like they belong so that I feel like I belong, or I'll just act out in a way that doesn't feel natural and normal to me. And it can actually create more divide. There's other things that came up as I was doing it, but when you tell the story, you're sharing it with yourself. It expands your thinking. Now, that's not the end of it. You then tell the story again. And other things come up. And in the book, he says, do it about 5 times, where you're telling the story over and over and over again. And eventually I got to a point of laughter, because what I was doing was just realizing how much pity I have about me. Poor Glenn. And poor Glenn has allowed this to happen and has kept on reliving his story, and it manifests itself in different ways. It became boring when I was telling this story. And that's the whole intention, is you keep on telling the story until you realize how boring it is, and then you can let go of it. Amazing results. I felt completely different afterwards, and I've done it the same thing on another story that I have about myself, and I have some temporary relief from that. And the intention is that you complete things by telling the story, by finishing it off, by evaluating. It's like you're reading a book from beginning to middle to end. Versus when we're young, something happens, or we have a lived experience as an adult, and we quite often don't finish processing what it is because we don't give ourselves the time and the space to do so. And in doing this, by looking at yourself in the mirror, you're giving yourself that space and time. Completion. Relive to relieve. This ties really well into some of the work that I do in one of the courses that I teach. And that is to be with what might be uncomfortable. So one activity I do, and you can do this right now, is to consider something somebody does that you find triggers you or gets you upset. When you do that, you close your eyes and you consider, what is that person doing? And relive the experience with your eyes closed, relaxing your body, breathing, and then giving yourself a body scan from head to toe and identifying where you're feeling any sensations. So for me, when I consider my level of perfectionism and in situations where I'm not getting things perfect, I can tap into that and consider that situation. And what I notice in my body is that I start feeling tension in my neck, my jaw, and my shoulders. Why is this important? Because that's getting more intelligent with your emotions and understanding that this situation has a physiological effect on your body and being present with that. Where quite often we might just try to do some stretches, we get away from it versus learning from it. So the next part of this is when your eyes are closed and you are considering that sensation, be with it for a certain amount of time, maybe 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes, being okay with it. Eventually it might go away. Or what you can do is ask yourself in your mind's eye, what message do you have for me? What do you need to share? And we start learning from our body sensations, and chances are something might come up, such as, you have to let go. It's really not that important. Focus on yourself. And once you hear that, the sensation may go away. Why is this powerful? Is because when that sensation comes up in the future, you'll probably now realize that that sensation is due to you not being authentic in the moment or not dealing with a situation that triggers you. And now you know where the trigger resides. So when I feel my neck tighten, when I feel my shoulders get tense, I know, here I go again. I'm trying to be perfect. Stop. Now, if I tie this back into the book, if you find you're feeling body sensations, you can tap into it, find out what the sensation might be about, and then you can do this whole completion exercise around reliving to relieve. Work through that. Takes 20 minutes. Look in the mirror, have a conversation with yourself, repeat the conversation 5 times, and chances are you will start letting that go. The book has many other tools in it around what to do, what to let go of, what are you hanging on to, why are you hanging on to it, how can you refocus your efforts onto other things. So many little tidbits of information, and what I might do in the next episode is talk a bit about those and how I can start applying them. Here's the thing with everything I talk about. I am not a therapist. I teach people how to tap within themselves to find the answers. I give people tools and techniques on what are some options for you to do. Where one can fall down flat on your face is by doing nothing. We have brain patterns that are established over decades for some of us. And if we don't take a moment to stop and consider what are those things that are not working, first of all, it's always going to be the same. These become unconscious behavioral patterns. But if you don't actually deliberately put tools into place, nothing is going to change. Just like when I was trying to learn Spanish, when the going got tough on Duolingo for me, the tough didn't get going. I unsubscribed to Duolingo. I'm now back on Duolingo. Because if I want to learn Spanish, by me stopping, I'm not going to create any new habits. I'm not going to remember things. I'm just putting my body through and my mind through a learning experience, but I'm not sustaining it. So I'm not going to create new habits. I'm never going to be able to learn how to speak Spanish if I don't stick to it. Same thing when it comes to self-awareness activities and doing some of the things that I talk about in this podcast. If you just try it once and then let it go, nothing will change. it takes repetitive reminders to do these types of things. It's just like I got into a motorcycle accident. I'm supposed to do physio. And so he gave me all these exercises to do. What do? I do it 2 days and I stop doing it. And then I wonder, oh, why does my hip hurt? Well, hello, Glenn, you're not actually doing the exercises. So I am the preacher of this news and this practice, but I don't necessarily do it all the time. However, what I do now, as an example with Duolingo, is every morning I have my coffee and I do Duolingo. And in the evening, instead of watching Netflix or whatever, I will spend 10 minutes doing Duolingo. So I'm keeping it there. Now, I need to start doing the same thing with my physio, and also the same thing with living an attitude of gratitude, based on what I shared a couple of episodes ago around creating a list and thinking about what went well today. And sometimes I am a day delayed on it, but generally speaking, I spend some time in my mind considering what went well today, so I can start focusing on wellness versus unwellness. Many of us focus on what's hurting, who's bothering us, negative news. There's so much negativity out there, and it can lead to anxieties because we're all striving for a certain level of security in our life, that I know what's going to happen, that I have control over my life, and there's so many things that are not working. No wonder anxiety rates are up. But if I can focus in on me and focus on making a better me, to live in this world and to thrive from this world by applying some of these different tools and techniques, the world is our oyster. I have noticed over the years, through doing this work, that I become much more authentic, much more real with people. I do have my moments when I'm not, and life has improved so much. Folks, relive to relieve. Don't hang on to the past or blame the past or blame others. Relive your experiences, relieve it, let it go, focus on what can be done and the gifts life has. Thanks for listening.